Hello and good morning to everyone. We are live here. It is now 50 minutes past 8. Welcome on the occasion of the fifth edition of the Fund Distribution Breakfast. Quite a special edition indeed. This is quite 2020 has been quite a special year in many ways. So Fund Distribution Breakfast, fifth edition, and this has become quite a compelling event as a result of this popularity and beyond the realm of professional investors, sustainable investment, green investments. This is what will be keeping us busy amongst other topics this morning. So, obviously, many people have engaged in this to develop investment solutions to enrich their CSG range of products. So we're continuing to collect such funds have been collected despite the crisis. So we're going to be talking about a number of topics within the next couple of hours with experts. We're going to have discussions and debates. We're going to be setting the framework to start with the regulatory framework. And we're going to be talking about sustainable funds. We're going to be talking about distribution channels. And as a background, before handing it over to Yves Tambour to deal with this particular issue, are we moving towards a more ethical model of investment and sustainable investment? Hello, Yves Tambour, to Fund Global. And so we're talking about 250 participants live here. Well, 250. Well, we should be around 260 participants live following us. So, and the story goes on. Obviously, we've been impacted by this crisis. We can't stay still, and we need to take action. And indeed, we've taken the decision to continue these fund distribution breakfast only in digital format these days. Obviously, given under the current circumstances, there's lots of work put into this event, lots of work indeed, to organize such an event. Yes, I can bear witness to that. And this is way more work than in an in-person event. This is a new story. This is way more exciting in some ways, if I can say so. But I'm delighted, truly delighted to be here with you this morning. So if sustainable development, I'd say that sustainable investment has become essential. And maybe this is a kind of a substantial trend. This is more than the topic of the moment. Yes, our topic is fund distribution. And this is our core business, fund distribution. This is, and sustainable funds within this particular context is the topic we deal with. We deal with day in, day out, following what happened over the past 2-3 years, notably in the French market, was governed by a regulation mostly focusing on institutional investors. And we've really seen for the past couple of years a change in paradigm. There's awareness raising collectively. We've seen many fund management companies that have developed, have turned towards the ESG products, and not doing this is running a risk within the next 2, 3, 4 years. I don't have a crystal ball, but the risk you're running is to be marginalized if you don't get and move in this direction. And that's why we've seen such a growth. And this phenomenon has taken different speed, different paces here and abroad. And we need to do this, but, doing it professionally. And this is what we're going to be discussing this morning. We're going to have a few experts and contributors discussing this topic with us this morning. As a preamble, by way of an introduction, to set the scene with a more wider context, with a more historic context, we have Marie-Pierre Payon, president of the ESG, and Sustainable. To tell us about the history of sustainable investment, and are we seeing a significant acceleration of history? Yes, when we deliver presentations to retail clients, when it starts talking about ESG, really is 97 is the key date with the launch of the first UN report, the April report, introducing this term. And in the year 2000 in France, we've seen a movement of some of the management fund companies that have put in place a number of products. And the field of ESG, so there's a move towards regulations. We are the country where regulations is very important with the L225 articles, and then the EU developed its own legal framework. So there's been a whole regulatory paradigm been pushing the companies to communicate on ESG information. It didn't structure the market per se, but it gave an impetus, a momentum, and therefore then there's a number of projects became and started and became more structured as time went by. So, and the first market to that was the institutional market, and then the retail market. And so reserve funds in the context started developing calls for proposals requiring the players to comply with their ESG charter. We're talking the mid of the years 2000. So, and this is where these two histories joined together, and then the label, the ESG label, is a private label, and then we saw the launch from 2002 of the ESG and the green label. So this move towards label developments went on attracting more retail investors as one of its consequences. And I have a few figures to share with you on the development of such a label, so ESG labeled funds from 2018. We've seen a real acceleration in the trends as of the 31st of December 2018. We had 122 billion for funds under management of ESG labeled fund, and 2019 145 billion, and now we have 204 billion the ESG funds under management. So, and so there's been a regulatory framework development imposing to insurers who have within their multi-support life insurance offering to have at least one labeled ESG fund, so ESR, Greenfin, or Solidaire, so Solidarity Fund. It is not a constraint. It is they're requested within their offering to have at least one labeled, so ESG labeled fund. And this will be, we'll have to have all three in the offering, all three labels going forward. So this gives an impetus, this gives a momentum, and then it really truly illustrates the movements of changes of our society, within our society. So we are at the turning point. And so in 97, we started talking about sustainable development, and now there's a whole move questioning the very foundation of the growth of the last 30, 40 years, and moving towards more inclusive, circular growth, and indicating there's a change in financial products offered to the retail clients. And they want financial performance, yes, as always, but they want performance that's a bit more social and environmental. It's about giving meaning, giving a purpose to our saving, as we often hear. And so this is about the growth of the industry, and it will not be, tomorrow will be different to yesterday. Well, these growth of this industry will continue going forward. So how, in what direction? Well, sustainable finance has a great future ahead of it. So when we look at the significance of this growth, we look at the managed funds, it's good. It's still got room to grow. Well, there's still a few hurdles today, such that all the money to be invested cannot all be dedicated to sustainable funds. So when you change paradigm, as ever, there are behaviors. The behavioral issues, some are more reactive than others. And we need to continue training managers, fund managers, and telling them how, what is the inclusion of a ESG fund, what does that mean, and in terms of their portfolio, seen over the past few years. And this takes time. And it always takes time. Things do. As ever, that's on the offering side, that's on the supply side, but on the demand side as well. Well, I'd like to highlight one point that is for me the sinus war, which is core. And this is about the management of data. Now, on financial data management, from the provider standpoint, their providers use data. We don't necessarily know where they come from, and most importantly, we don't know much about the quality of data. We've seen a standardization of financial data a number of years ago, and nationally and then internationally with the IFRS standards. And now we need to request for ESG data to be standardized, because this will allow us to have a better quality of data and to have companies that don't use tons of financial elements that are not useful for us as investors to develop approaches. So we have to have a more homogeneous and more quality data, comparable amongst themselves. So when, as an investor, you want to compare businesses within the same given sector of an industry, and you need to have comparable data, and you want for these data to be checked, to be verified. And I think in terms of the IFRAG, I'm very, very happy, because this is about an advisory body to the Commission on IFRS standards. They're working on the standardization of financial data within the IFRD review. So this is a very important element. And what's going to be the data to have a standard, to have something that is really standardized well. It will take 2, 3, 5 years. Let's face it, this is a lot of work. And within the European framework, because this will allow us to keep the things under, having clear vision as to what's happening in Europe. And in terms of the retail demand, retail investors saying, well, this is very complicated, ESG is also what's happening, what matters, and to pick up on the matter related to the future. This is about the development of impactful funds that will allow to better stress the performance, and as well as the performance of the business and the environmental performance. This is a new stage in the rocket and the launcher. And you need matrix, and this matrix, and they have to be the same, they have to be comparable, because the end customer has to understand that the funds they're buying into create an environmental impact. That goes beyond the borders of Europe, of course. And because we're ahead of the game in terms of ESG, so. And at times we have to comply with standards that are not European, they are American. So it's a new debate. So, Yves Tabbour, I see you're nodding. Are you in agreement? Yes, indeed. I do believe that we are seeing a changing paradigm. Clearly, say an acceleration. Things are accelerating. And on the demand side, so the demand is accelerating, and the supply de facto is accelerating. So ahead of the game, and so with regards to data, and notably we'll see this in one of the panels, people will explain that a French group has developed their own research center because the data they would find on the market were not good, not of good quality, and therefore they've wanted to move in this direction. So it is now 5 minutes past 9, we're still live. We're moving on to our first panel discussions on the regulatory framework, national European framework that is evolving now, that is developing.